Welcome to another new episode. Like always, today we are here with an exciting topic that will boot your knowledge. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into the main discussion.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring a seriously fascinating, high-stakes corner of the legal world. Have you ever caught one of those wild headlines about an 8-figure settlement from a commercial trucking crash and wondered, how in the world do they actually calculate a number like that? Well, it's definitely not arbitrary. It's a highly structured, almost mathematical process that turns the raw facts of a crash into a multi-million-dollar demand. Let's pull back the curtain and uncover the exact anatomy of a commercial trucking settlement, layer by layer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Did you know that a commercial truck accident case generally settles for 3 to 10 times more than a regular passenger car case for the exact same injury? It's true. Think about it. If you suffer a severe back injury in a fender bender with a Honda Civic, that case might settle for a few $100,000. But if that exact same injury is caused by an 80,000-pound 18-wheeler, the settlement value suddenly skyrockets into the millions. Lawyers actually call this the trucking premium. Now, you might be wondering why that premium exists. Well, it's baked into the structure right out of the gate because of insurance limits. In states like Georgia, everyday passenger cars are only required to carry a mere $25,000 in minimum liability coverage. But commercial trucks, they're regulated by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and their minimums start at $750,000 for general freight. Throw hazardous materials into the mix, and you're looking at minimums of $5 million or more. So the ceiling for financial recovery is just fundamentally massive from day one. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be breaking down the trucking premium. Layer 1, special damages. Layer 2, general damages. Layer 3, punitive damages, stacking defendants. And finally, we'll look at the comparative negligence trap. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the trucking premium. This premium we mentioned, it isn't just about massive insurance policies. It's heavily driven by physical realities and incredibly strict federal laws. An 80,000-pound truck colliding with a passenger car at highway speeds is just a fundamentally more violent event, which sadly leads to catastrophic injuries. Plus, there's this concept called negligence per se. That basically means if the truck driver broke federal safety rules, like, say, driving way past their legally allowed hours, it acts as automatic proof of negligence. When you mix severe injuries with that kind of egregious conduct, it completely rewrites the settlement math. Moving right along to Section 2, Layer 1, special damages. To really grasp how these legal demands are built, you have to understand the overarching 3-layer valuation framework. It's kind of like a secret formula lawyers use. First, they calculate special damages. Then they use those numbers to scale up general damages. And finally, they top the whole thing off with punitive damages. You literally cannot reach those massive 8-figure headlines without perfectly stacking these 3 steps. So what exactly goes into Layer 1? Well, this layer is all about the hard receipts. These are your documented, quantified financial losses. We're talking past and future medical expenses, past lost wages, future lost earning capacity, and property damage. And figuring out the future isn't just a guessing game. Lawyers actually hire certified life care planners and vocational experts to project the exact dollar amount of a lifetime of medical care and lost income. In catastrophic cases, this baseline layer alone can easily run into the millions. But how they count these medical bills is where it gets really interesting, thanks to something called the collateral source rule. Let's say a victim has a $200,000 hospital bill, but their health insurance negotiates it down and ultimately pays just $50,000. Legally, the plaintiff is still allowed to claim the full original $200,000 in damages against the trucking company. You always use the billed amounts, not the paid amounts. This rule creates a massive baseline for our next step, which brings us to Section 3, Layer 2, general damages. Now, general damages compensate for non-economic losses. These are the things that don't come with an invoice, like pain and suffering, mental anguish, or a loss of enjoyment of life. Because you can't exactly hand a jury a receipt for physical pain, lawyers use what's called the multiplier method. They take that total sum of these special damages we just calculated and multiply it by a specific factor to essentially put a dollar amount on human suffering. The scale they use is fascinating. For a minor injury, the multiplier might just be 1.5 to 2 times the special damages. But for catastrophic trucking injuries like paralysis, or in cases where the trucking company did something terribly wrong, like forcing an exhausted driver to stay on the road, that multiplier gets pushed up to 7, 8, or even 10 times the medical bills. Just think about that. $1 million in medicals and loss of wages, combined with a 10x multiplier, instantly adds $10 million to the demand. Let's move on to Section 4, Layer 3, Punitive Damages. Up until this point, the whole formula has been about compensating the victim. But this third layer, it is strictly about punishing the defendant. Punitive damages are not handed out for simple, everyday mistakes. They're specifically designed to punish and deter what the law calls conscious indifference. If a truck driver misjudges a braking distance, that's just normal negligence. But if the trucking company ignored documented maintenance defects, falsified their electronic logbooks, or dispatched a driver they knew was exhausted, that completely crosses the line from ordinary negligence into punishable conscious indifference. Here is a shocking detail. Many states, like Georgia, generally cap these punitive damages at $250,000. However, there are exceptions that blow the roof completely off that cap. If the case involves a defective product, a specific intent to harm, or, crucially, driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that cap completely disappears. A drunk truck driver instantly uncaps the limits, allowing lawyers to tack on $10 or $15 million in pure punitive demands right on top of everything else we've already calculated. All right, Section 5, Stacking Defendants. So we've got our massive formula all calculated, right? We're talking tens of millions of dollars here. But what happens if the primary insurance policy just isn't big enough to actually pay it? Well, an insider lawyer knows not to just sue the truck driver. They'll conduct deep discovery to track down every single corporate entity connected to that crash to find those hidden vaults of money. It's like a giant puzzle. Was the cargo loaded wrong, throwing off the trailer's balance? Sue the cargo loader. Did the brakes fail? Go after the maintenance contractor and the component manufacturer. Did a broker carelessly hire a carrier with an awful safety record? Sue the freight broker. You can realistically have up to 7 different defendants in a single crash. And here is the exact reason they do this. Every single one of those corporate entities carries their own multi-million-dollar commercial insurance policy. By stacking the coverage of the driver, the carrier, the loader, and the broker all together, the total available money pool can absolutely skyrocket. You can go from a basic $1 million policy to a combined $50 million or more. Finally, we've reached Section 6, the comparative negligence trap. You've seen exactly how this math gets so huge, but there's a legal trapdoor that can make a $50 million demand literally vanish into thin air. In states that use a system called comparative negligence, a jury doesn't just look at the truck driver. They evaluate absolutely everyone's behavior. If a jury decides the victim was even slightly distracted or maybe going 10 miles over the speed limit when they were hit, they'll assign a percentage of fault to the victim. And whatever that percentage is, their final payout is proportionally reduced. Let's look at the brutal math of the 50% bar, which is used in states like Georgia and New Jersey. It changes absolutely everything. If you are 0% at fault, you get 100% of the money. If the jury says you were 49% to blame for the crash, you still walk away with 51% of that multi-million-dollar settlement. But if your fault hits 50% or more, you get absolutely nothing, $0. So you better believe the defense will do everything in their power to push your blame to exactly 50%. Because the defense is fighting tooth and nail to push a victim over that 50% cliff, building an airtight liability case becomes a high-stakes technological battle. Lawyers will immediately send out legal demands to preserve the truck's electronic logging devices to prove the driver was fatigued. They'll download the engine control module, basically the truck's black box, to prove the driver never even touched the brakes before impact. Securing this digital and physical evidence is literally the only way to drive the victim's fault percentage back down to 0. It's wild to think about, right? Millions of dollars meticulously built up through medical receipts, life care plans, pain multipliers, and stacked corporate insurance policies, all of it resting on the razor-thin margin of proving exactly who did what in a split-second collision. So if a massive multi-million-dollar settlement can completely vanish at just 50% fault, how confident are you that the absolute truth of a crash can actually be proven? Thanks for joining us to explore the fascinating math behind.
How did you like today's discussion? If you have any questions about this topic, don't forget to let me know in the comment. Stay well, stay healthy.